money and technology don't equal entrepreneurship.
Yeah, that's good.
It's passion and pain for the market. Do you really understand the struggle and suffering of the people that live around you? Are you motivated to solve problems for them in a way that's going to provide mutual reward? And that's, I think, at the heart of entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
And that's not in everyone.
Welcome to the Uptick Podcast. I'm Stephen Roach, and today I'm talking with Matt Hangen, CEO of Water4, an organization tackling Africa's water crisis with an approach that looks more like a startup than traditional charity. In this episode, Matt shares how he and his team are reimagining the way that we give, showing how shifting from traditional aid to entrepreneur-driven solutions is creating real change. So if you're passionate about solving big problems in bold new ways, this episode is sure to inspire you. Thanks for tuning in, and let's get started.
Matt, thank you so much for joining me today in the studio. It's an honor to have you here with me, and I'm excited to learn about your story, man.
I appreciate it. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. Well, you have such a unique model that you've developed for this work that you're doing in Africa with responding to the water crisis. I'm looking forward to talking about that. But before we get to the nuts and bolts of it, how did you get into this work? Like, what motivated you to start this?
Yeah, it's a long story, best told over drinks, but essentially, like, I was surprised as anybody. I grew up in a rural town in Alabama, and so I didn't expect to wake up one day looking over palm trees in Togo in West Africa, trying to figure out how to, solve this great problem of water. And I didn't grow up thinking my idea was to become a missionary, or I already messed up. Man.
Keep going, this is good.
My a dream was to become a mechanical engineer. And so my senior year of high school, I was enrolled at University of South Alabama. I had a scholarship to Spring Hill and Auburn University in engineering. And then right in the middle of that, I got my whole life turned upside down. I had this radical spiritual encounter that made me really want to give back and help the world.
Wow.
And so I ended up becoming a Bible major, to the shock and horror of most of my family members.
Amazing.
And went overseas a few times and just found that building and construction were beyond the building and construction, the ability to train and teach people how to do vocational skills.
Yeah.
Was something I loved. And so I just bonded with this group of blue collar guys that I'd always get around, and they were drinking beer and teaching me cuss words in local language and all the stuff all my friends, at home I had done my whole life. And it was kind of a unique thing to have this, pastor who had grown up in that environment and had made a switch late in life. And, here he was in this context of missions.
Yeah.
And, so I moved to Africa to do job training and help churches that have been started to be independent. And so to not depend on Western resources, Western thinking.
Yeah.
It was how do you become a really independent person, which I'd spent my whole life trying to master. So it was a great vocation for me. And we, one of the villages we were working in, a child named Olivier had died of waterborne illness. And we were picked him up that evening in his village. We brought him to the hospital. We'd run up and down the stairs, buying medicine before they would treat him, buying a respirator, and watch this poor child die before our eyes and watch his family grieve. And it just felt totally powerless to do anything to stop it. We'd actually helped this family adopt this young boy and his sister because they couldn't have children, and we'd paired them with an adoption agency. And just huge sense of guilt and why did we just intervened and caused this, and why didn't we know this was going on? And I'd seen people drinking out of these open wells since we'd been there, and it was romantic. It was like watching a Western, It was Gunsmoke. You see people go out, pull a bucket out of the well, and you think, wouldn't that be great? And as kids, we romanticized drinking out of creeks and streams. And,
right.
The water's better and this and that, but it's not better. It's killing 1 out of 5 kids. And, everyone's sick at some point, through every month because of waterborne illness. And nobody said anything because it's just normal. So when Olivier died, I was like, God, we can dig a well. I'd looked out the back door of my parents' house in South Alabama at a hand pump my whole life.
Yeah.
We had a well that my dad and granddad had drove in with a sledgehammer, a Sandpoint well with a red pitcher pump on the top of it that we used when the power went out, for 3 weeks every summer when we got hurricanes where we lived. And I was just like, man, people shouldn't die. There's water in the ground.
Yeah.
We can get water out of the ground. So I built a drill kit out of local materials, trained 12 guys how to hand sludge a well. We went 90 feet in the ground, got fresh water out, built a pump out of tire sidewalls and flip-flops and rebar and roll pipe. And we're, pumping water out of Olivier School. And that was how I got started. And I thought, man, we have fixed the water problem for everybody, you know? And then it was like the next village and the next village and the next village. And so what trickled me into the work was just really a response to like try to do something because this poor child had senselessly died. And suddenly a number became a name, and then that name opened our eyes to how many other, women and children and men were facing these challenges, and maybe I could do something about it.
Yeah, that's amazing. So when you got into this work, Water 4 already existed a little bit, I think, but you've gone through numerous iterations. There have been a lot of shifts and changes.
Yep.
What were some of the initial changes that you brought to the table, or what did you recognize when you first started working with them that maybe needed to be looked at a second time?
Yeah, the reason I found them, that we were using like 212 kilobyte per second internet in Africa, and like watching the Facebook picture load. And one of our friends in Uganda had bought a Water 4 drilling kit, and that's what Water 4 was really known for, was this low cost manual drilling kit, and then a low cost PVC pump that wouldn't corrode, and high acid water, which is a problem, and can be easily maintained. And so I contacted them and said, hey, can I have your equipment? And Water 4's initial thesis really was, let's produce low-cost drilling equipment, and let's saturate the market with operators who can use low-cost equipment, therefore low-cost drilling and a low-cost pump, and make a hand pump something that a village can afford on their own without the need for subsidies and charity. So the thesis with Water 4 the whole time has been, let's use charity as startup capital, not perpetual capital. And then let's try to build some sort of engine that'll bring economies of scale because the problem's too big to not think otherwise. So when Water 4 and I met, I basically was somebody I actually asked if I could just copy their equipment. And they were like, no, but we'll give it to you. And so they shipped this equipment over to Africa. They sent someone within like 2 months of me emailing them. And it was drastically better than the equipment that I was making, because I was breaking drill stem off like every well and fishing tools out. And suddenly we could dig an 8-inch diameter borehole 100 feet inside of a week and not have to deal with collapsing issues and a lot of other stuff I was facing before. So that's how Water 4 started, and that's how I engaged with them initially, was purveyor of equipment.
Yeah.
We were starting like 5 businesses. My wife and I, we were making $19,000 a year before taxes. Apparently missionaries had to pay self-employment tax, which no one told us. So we were broke and using motorcycles, and we wanted to dig wells everywhere. We just didn't have the money to do it. And so we go to a village, we'd say, you guys are going to have to pay for all the materials, and you're going to have to feed this team that I've trained how to do this, which is going to be a couple $100. And I'll come out here and work. I was at the time like 290, beard down to my belly, redneck well driller. And, I'll put my back into it and dig these wells, but you guys are going to have to pay for it. And I think that was one of the big things that Water 4 found really novel. They're like, you're getting upfront financing, which is what it equates to in the business world, on this product. And then we were charging a monthly rate for maintenance on the pump. Where it's like, if you break down and amortize the maintenance of the pump instead of one big episodic event that could be several $100s, let's just do it like $10, $12 a month every month, and then we'll create like an escrow account to maintenance the pump.
Wow.
And if the pump works, people pay for it. The cost is low. People can pay for the materials. So that's where Water 4 was like, our founders and the board were like, this is a business model innovation, which to me was really just a reaction to scarcity.
Sure.
Let me figure out how to help people.
Yeah.
And, people have to pay for it because I can't. But the visionary leaders here in the U.S. knew that there was something bigger happening in terms of business model innovation at that point.
Man, I mean, that alone is such an innovative way of thinking about it. I mean, I've talked to several folks in the nonprofit sector that are doing, missionary type work and introducing entrepreneurship as a means of addressing this crisis. That's really mind-blowing to me.
I think if you grow up without any resources, it's really like the only way you can think to do it.
Yeah.
Because I'd never been around anybody. I was obviously a bad fundraiser. I didn't have any money, to live off myself. I'd never been around anyone that had money that they were doing. Their philanthropy was such like a foreign idea to me.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the natural way we fix most problems is to start a business. There's a problem, you start a business solves the problem, gets paid for that. The better they solve the problem, the better they get paid, and things evolve. Philanthropy and charity, it creates a really interesting dynamic because it doesn't operate inside the laws of a market, which means it often doesn't have the feedback mechanisms to tell it whether it's solving the problem or not.
Yeah.
And so there was a bigger innovation we were onto, which essentially was the amount that people were willing to pay was an indication of the amount in which we were solving their problems.
Wow.
Which, started a series of evolutions for us.
Yeah. Talk to me about some of the challenges that you faced with the mindsets in this, because what you're talking about, not only in the people that you're trying to serve, but also in the people that are part of this with you. There's a bit of a mindset leap that you're asking people to make. How did that work for you? What was that like?
Yeah. How should it have worked? How did it work? I think I tend to have a real high appetite for change, I just tolerate it well. And so for me, it was like, oh, this isn't working. We need to do something else. So the passing out technology model, we were going to manufacture kits in country. We're going to train all these operators, saturate the market with them, and then they were going to go drill wells. Well, that didn't work because people move from order to disorder, second law of thermodynamics, we witnessed. And I think it happens in, low income economies. You see it even faster because there's less props to hold things up and keep them from not working. But the drillers weren't drilling professional wells. The equipment wasn't being serviced. Wasn't being repaired or replaced. People were cutting corners. And so all of a sudden we had a lot of equipment out there being used improperly, which makes people question the equipment and methodology, not the user and operator. So quick, I was like, we have to train people and we need to shift to an equipment-based model to an SME model where we're actually trying to start and scale these small to medium-sized enterprises. And at the time, I was really passionate about local ownership because I love people, I love entrepreneurship, and I love people to have ownership, and love to see people move from, poverty to prosperity. Yeah. And I thought that was a huge part of it. And we'll talk about some of those shifts that occurred after that, but quickly, when I was brought in the organization and as a partner in 2010 and on staff at 2011, I was like, we've got to really invest in professionalizing these businesses or we're going to lose the reputation of the whole low-cost drilling means. Because digging a well by hand, if done right, it's like making Amish furniture. It's slower, but it can actually be better. You can actually dial into the aquifers, know the soil textures with more accuracy. You can build back the gravel pack around the casing, slot the screens better, and get a high-producing well. But when the world looks at it, you see, 7 guys standing outside in hard hats instead of a big drill rig. Yeah. So it looks like it should be worse. But 50% of Africa has adequate groundwater for drinking, less than 75 feet from the surface. And so we had this good match of technology to soil and water and let us go places. So that first pivot from technology to doing SMEs, the first reaction was you just added a ton of complexity, right? Because it was just manufacturing things and then selling them to other NGOs and trying to sell them, to local individuals who'd want to use them and entrepreneurs. To now we're going to, actually professionalize a business. We're going to help them set up charts of accounts, and we're going to help them with supply chains and marketing and, ongoing revenue streams from customers and villages, beneficiaries to customers. And we're going to try to help them scale to 50 to 75 employees and, get up to $250,000 annual revenue and try to, there's a lot of stuff that happened in that. So that was our second approach. One of the mistakes I made in that era is I got into the international sort of NGO world at that same point, and I went from sort of redneck trying to figure out a problem to now needing to also do all the stuff all the other NGOs are doing. Yeah. And so then I added all this other complexity, which is the water, sanitation, and hygiene, and these trainings and community mobilization and all this other stuff you'll hear that you never hear anywhere else but in the water charity space. But all those things of adding the complexity, essentially what I did to help us metabolize the change that I was driving was focusing on this vision of this problem is too big to be solved by donations, and we have to develop some sort of solution that can provide an adequate product and self-finance itself in local markets.
Wow.
And so that vision anchoring helped us go from problem one to or approach one to approach two, which was build tech to scale SMEs that use that tech. And there's a third iteration that, is probably the most interesting of all. If you want to hear more.
I would love to.
So as we scale these SMEs, we're asking them to go to these villages and get payments monthly for the hand pumps. And their like collection rate is like 20%. And so you get 20% receivables as a business, you're not exactly crushing it, like something's wrong here. And so we were using donations to drill the well, and then we were trying to get the well maintained by the community by using these monthly payment structures. And then at the same time, try to simultaneously develop local markets where you could cover the whole cost through governments and NGOs and other stuff. But we were losing ground fast. And we had a donor give us our first big grant for like $1 million to go do that model in a new county. And a part of it was a baseline survey to just go in and make sure that these 100,000 people were going to pay what we thought they were going to pay for water. Do an economic survey, house to house. We look at like, what are people buying? How much money do they say they have? How many assets do they have? What are the other competing water sources? How do people earn their money? This whole real detailed thing. And then we had a hand pump, and we said, okay, we're going to need to charge like 2 cents per jerry can for the water for this hand pump. And that'll cover all the costs for the maintenance. And people are like, nope. And they're like, okay, we'll be back. And so we go to like our office and we do all this R&D work because we're a bunch of engineering type folks, and we build a mechanical well chlorinator that will chlorinate the water and ensure that it's safe to drink in any container back to your house. It's an erosion chlorinator, no maintenance, super cool. We powder coat it bright blue. We put it on the front of the pump. We're like, how about now? Because we had worked OpEx cost of chlorine was really nothing, and the upfront cost was pretty low from our design. So we're like, we could probably make it for around the same cost. We can make this work. And they were like, nope.
Interesting.
So we had like hand pump, clean water, always working, and people weren't willing to pay for it. So the question like finally dawned on us, well, what would you pay for? And people were like, piped water. And we're out here, this is like huts, and homes. And so we're like, piped water? And they're like, yeah, that's what we pay that price for, is piped water. And it was a really like the most courageous moment, I think, the organization was like taking people seriously at that statement. And we were like, okay, we'll be back.
Wow.
And so we went back to our lab, and so we go back to the lab and we're like, all right, could we do piped water? What would that look like? What would it take? And so we reverse engineered the cost of the CapEx around our piped water infrastructure model around this price, which was around 2.5, 3 cents per jerry can for water, and said, how many people in what catchment area would we need to have by what quantity of water to make this pencil?
Wow.
And while we're doing it, let's make sure it pencils where it can actually repay capital. And so let's make it investable. Let's start from there, start at the ground up. Let's do that. We're already manufacturing tools and equipment. Let's manufacture the buildings. Let's manufacture the water treatment centers. We already drill wells. We'll drill our own wells. We already do our own geophysics. So let's just trench now, and then we'll sell the water. How hard could that be? But that's what we did. So we our third pivot was actually jettisoning all of our proprietary technology. Our manual drilling kits went away because now we want a deep, high-yielding wells to serve 1,000, 3,000 people at a time. We didn't want our PVC pump, which we had spent countless days outside church parking lots in 5-gallon buckets showing how this pump worked, spraying water across the parking lot. And, we went back and said, we're going to do this new thing. We're going to call it Numa. It's a branded piped water approach. We're going to pipe to these retail kiosks and pipe to people's homes, and we're going to charge people per liter on this water with prepaid meters. Let's go. And that was 9 years into our existence. We were now on our third strong pivot. As an organization, underneath the same thesis, which was there's not enough charity in the world to solve a problem that half the planet faces.
Yeah.
But 3 very different means of getting there.
Yeah.
In the end.
Man, what sustained your team during all those pivots? Because that's a lot of work. And those are not small pivots. What kept you guys going? What was the strength of that?
Man, I think this will not be the trophy award for me. It's like sustaining the team vision. I go around the corner I like see around the corner, then I'm around the corner, and then I'm like looking behind me, expecting everyone else to know what this maniac is actually pursuing. There's a story about Teddy Roosevelt taking San Juan Hill. I think he like runs up it once all the way by himself through enemy fire over 3 barbed wire fences. He's taking shots on, and he gets up there and no one's behind him, so he has to run back down the hill and like get his troops to come back the second time. I'm like, this is my third time
your
running
model.
up the hill. Yeah, that's my model of leadership. No, it's hard. Like people get a job at a nonprofit expecting it to like do nonprofit things. And, I'm trying to use business as a vehicle for good because I believe that business is all about solving people's problems, providing value, and then getting paid for that value so that you can deliver more of it. And I couldn't articulate that when I was doing all this.
Sure.
And, I couldn't articulate that from the first iteration to the second iteration. I was sure it was going to work. And then the people that are in second iteration, I'm now going, well, that doesn't work. We're going to go to the third one. And so I think if you're not in the entrepreneurial seat of the leader, it can be really easy to think this guy's got no idea what he's doing, rather than like what we're at now is really, innovative and it's working. It's changing the model around water philanthropy. But at the time it was hard. Like I hired sort of the best in the nonprofit space, but that almost was a liability to them and to us because, they were trained to have certain SOPs that lined up with funders.
Yeah.
And there was a real reticence to go against the way that the funders were used to looking at things. Whereas I was much more comfortable sort of having the debate based on experience and sequences of logic to say, we want the same things, but I need to chart, new territories to get there.
Wow. So you're really like re-establishing the mindsets of the people that you're serving, as well as rebuilding the systems to serve them with, and also bringing along a team that has never done anything like this.
Yeah.
But if I have these stats right, at this point, you've created over 1,300 jobs and completed over 20,000 clean water projects. Is that right?
That's correct.
That's incredible.
Got some inertia now.
Yeah, that's right. And not only that, but just hearing your story, I know that there's a certain measure of dignity that I think you're also giving to the people that you must have seen a lot of transformation even on that front.
Yeah, I mean, I'll go. I'm like the CEO, I'll go, and the first thing I do when I see someone is thank you for being our customer. What can we do better?
Yeah.
It flips the table. So like so Water4, we wholly own 5 for-profit businesses in Africa, and we sell the water, and then any retained earnings go back into installing more water projects. Part of those sales actually services debt financing too. So the innovative thing that we're doing is we're using charity as seed capital for the core parts of water infrastructure, and then we use debt financing to connect it to homes. Those home connections are on functional assets. So they're functioning assets that can return revenue on day one. So we service the debt without risk, pay the debt financing back, and then use what's left over from the sales to install more points of distribution for communities. So it's this like building engine. Right now we're about 70% grants, 30% debt financing. By 2027, we'll be 60% debt financing, 40% grants. On this goal by 2031 to have a 100% financeable model. Use charity to go to new countries, but never look back and need it in the countries where we've been. So that's where this whole Numa piped water model has taken us. And now I can articulate it.
Yeah.
But in the moment, it's just like it needs to pay for itself.
Yeah.
We got to, keep pulling at this thread. So we'll have 1.1 million piped water customers at the end of this year. And that's the real head of steam that we're building is people buying it every day. At a million persons at a time at a few cents a day really adds up to a lot of revenue that can solve a lot of people's problems.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, so you've come through all of these iterations and all of these different stages of your process. What are some of the challenges that you're tackling today?
Yeah, big challenges is like scale. We've been growing year over year pretty substantially for anywhere from 10 to 20% since we started this. So 2017 is when we started the piped water approach called Numa. And then in 2020, we started to really get traction with our funders. Our funders kind of caught up with the vision. And then we started to have data to back up that, it was successful. The data with a business, unlike a nonprofit, is really easy because you can just show the P&L. People buy the product, it's solving their problems. If you have any margin left over, you're solving the problem efficiently.
Yeah.
Pretty basic.
Yeah.
And so we could really demonstrate the efficacy of the approach. And so it's like basically as a part of the growth that we have, our technology is modular, it's expandable, it's like a Lego set, you plug and play. That's not the complication. It's like building a team up. We got 1,400 local people that are a part of this business by the end of the year. Right now, 1,300, we'll have 1,400. We hired 450 people last year in local markets. And there's no like, Indeed.com, you've got to like recruit, hire, train. You've got to, go through often mitosis process where we split a division of a company and send it to a new region in order to start a new business. And so our big challenges are like keeping up with the amount of SOPs and systems that we need to not rely on personality-based leadership and personality-based or individual-based competencies. And so it's in this rapid growth, how do we standardize our finances, our key objectives, and our management processes to make it to where we are operating in a system-led business rather than an agile, lean, startup-based environment, which has been what we've kind of existed in for probably far too long, last 15 years.
Right. Well, what would you say one of the primary differences would be between, say, like a benefactor model and then, the SME, and then because your current model is different than either of those?
Yeah, the big thing for the customer is that in the benefactor model, you don't really ask people, if it works. And if they want it, because we all just kind of take free stuff. And so people are passive recipients of good, which is not nearly as empowering as, having a solution that you want and that you can afford and you pay for. Having pipe water, the difference between pipe water and a hand pump is that every woman and girl in every community saves 3 hours a day by having water at their home.
Wow.
So 3 hours a day, 1 million people, that's 3 million hours a day currently that every woman and girl get back. That's connected to what we do at Water Forward.
Yeah.
And so if you have to walk and wait in line at a hand pump and get the water, automatically it just cuts off a third of women and girls' productive capacity, education capacity, and basically a third of their future. They spend 8 years of their lives hauling water, 24-hour days worth of water hauling in their life. So they get all that time back. So that's what people are buying. And you can't give triple treated piped water to people for free and across the continent of Africa. There'll be 1 billion people in rural Africa by 2050. There's not enough charity to even approach that. So you can only give what we give by charging for it because of the pennies a day compounds to cover all this OpEx and capital replacement costs. So that's first thing. Big difference in what you can deliver if it's a business over what you give when it's free. It's stress balls and frisbees when it's free. Maybe it's a nice set of headphones or something if people are going to kick in and pay for it. So it's the difference of actually having to think, will this person value what I'm giving out? And I'll know that if they are willing to pay a little above what it cost. And so that's the difference of a business and a charitable approach, which is significant.
Yeah.
Your second question was
just about the SME and how that model.
Big lesson with SMEs. Just everyone that's trying to help people in business should read the E-Myth. It's like one-on-one textbook. I wish I had gotten it about 8 years sooner than I did. But it's this idea in the E-Myth that most people who start a business often do so because they have some technical competency and just don't want to work for someone, which is different from being an entrepreneur. And so you can have technical competency and run a business. It's not that it's not a business, but a business that's going to scale takes a particular set of skills that come equipped with a rare person that is a true-blooded entrepreneur. There's probably less than 5% of the world that actually have that in them. And so we were trying to help people get technical competency and then become business owners that could own, operate, and scale a business. And they would reach a level, like I said, of 25, 50 employees. To get their minivan and their Coke and chicken every day. And, they'd start taking money out of the business to do other things. And, just didn't have the vision for wanting to solve a global problem.
Sure.
Whereas we were looking at really how do we tackle the problem at scale. So I think that was a significant learning on the SME model was, we could professionalize to a point. It really depended on the intrinsic motivation of the people we were training. What's excellence mean to you? And there's a pretty broad spectrum of definitions of people striving for excellence. And so you can instill that to a point in people, but not beyond the point in people, if they're not willing to go there. And so we ran into, often it was good enough, but not good enough for what we knew needed to be there versus good enough in that lens of the entrepreneur that we were trying to scale. And that's what led us to this wholly owned model. Is we realized that we could only motivate people so far, in terms of professionalism, capacity to scale, vision. And we ended up spinning off all but 2 of the businesses we'd started, and then we acquired those 2 and helped them scale.
Yeah.
So I think the big learning was, money and technology don't equal entrepreneurship.
Yeah, no, that's good.
It's passion and pain for the market. Do you really understand the struggle and suffering of the people that live around you? Are you motivated to solve problems for them in a way that's going to provide mutual reward? And that's, I think, at the heart of entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
And that's not in everyone.
Yeah. That's amazing. You've had to learn a lot about the people that you're serving, and I'm sure that some of the cultural differences provided their own set of challenges. But what have you taken away from that at this point, or what have you learned from that could help not only you in your own entrepreneurial growth, but other entrepreneurs that maybe haven't had such a cross-cultural experience for you? What are some of the takeaways from that you think could be helpful for others?
I think we often make a technology and we just fall in love with it. If you're the engineering type, you're just sure this is going to fix everybody's problem. Like every entrepreneur, every product developer, every software developer thinks this is what everyone needs.
Yeah.
So we often start with developing the tech, and then our belief that we've made this tech that's going to solve everyone's problem before we've really lived with people and tried to understand what their problems are. So any technological development or business model development needs to start from a place of understanding people's struggles and suffering. Because what people are hiring us to do as entrepreneurs is they're hiring us to solve that struggle.
Yeah.
It's a job to be done. The whole basis of jobs theory is like people are hiring your product or service to do a job for them, and they're paying money that represents their time because there's going to be a savings of time, energy or suffering.
Yeah.
By hiring you to do it. So the first thing we've got to all do, no matter what context you are working in, whether it's, in your own culture and some other cultures, you have to incarnate the people you see as a market, really understand how their life is, what their needs are, and then what type of upside you might be able to provide. So it's like a servant-based philosophy to business, not an extractive, coercive, perspective of business. Like, I'm going to get rich off these people. That you're not going to have successful business if that's your mentality. But if your mentality is, I'm going to solve as much problems in its most impactful way as I possibly can, you're probably off to a good start of building something that could work.
Wow. That's incredible. Well, man, just one last question for you as we close up, and it's a simple one, but what's next for Water4? Where are you guys going from here?
Yeah, our big thing is so as I said, we're building this model that's blending finance right now. We have a fully commercial model for rural water in Africa. Like the amount of capital that can be unlocked will be, I lack the words for it. We'll be able to unlock just a massive amount of capital to go help people. And so for us, it's this battle and discipline to get to 2031, which is our goal, to have a fully commercially viable model, and then be able to unlock investment capital at large to go across countries and solve this problem at scale. And then all this commercial steam that's built by selling water to people every day as a water utility will start to compound. And what we hope to see is, a continent change inside people's lifetimes.
Yeah.
And so there'll be close to 1 billion people in rural Africa by 2050. We want to see a world where all those people have clean water at their house. We want every woman and girl to have 3 hours a day back in those worlds that they can use, which means a third of their income will be increased directly, proportionate to that water access. And we can't wait to employ thousands upon thousands of more people inside these businesses that, will get to deliver that hope and life to people every day.
Yeah. It's incredible, man. I just hearing your story, I am super inspired in my own life, and just the way that you've used entrepreneurship as a means of addressing a global crisis It's incredible. And just this merging of profit and purpose, I would say, it's extremely innovative. I hope our listeners take this away into their own ventures and do incredible works like the ones you're doing. So, man, thanks so much for joining me today. And we'll have links in the show notes so that people can connect with the work you're doing.
Awesome. Thank you.